after hearing the knowledge, then Arjun is told by Krishna, now that you know the bigger picture, we need to go back into the world. And this is important message because it means that there is no question of now asking why should I now participate in this world if I'm the whole thing? After all, who's benefiting here? And this just puts you back down to world. And this is the difference between Advaita Vedanta and these partialized systems where, you walk out with this knowledge. And now, right, you think, well, I don't have to do anything or I don't have to be responsible. But, when you add this aspect of the whole Gita, then it shows you there's a certain person that has to live out their life, that has to still contribute because you are within this order. And thereby it becomes one's duty to go into the world and participate and to shine your gifts. Now, in so doing, Arjuna is now also warned or cautioned that as soon as you leave the door, or not even within outside, but even within your home, we are confronted, despite having this knowledge, with the same mind conditioning as before the knowledge took place. So before the knowledge was heard, there was a certain kind of orientation that everyone has. And when the knowledge comes into our life, this exact same orientation is there. And this is contrary to what one would think, is that the knowledge sort of, fixes all problems magically. And now you're, Brahman, and now suddenly everything's fixed and you're on time, you're more gentler, you're more compassionate, you no longer label people, you'll no longer self-blame or put your responsibility aside. This is not the case at all, because there's still an instrument that's deeply ingrained to think since you were a child. And this is very hard to release, because we're talking about physical neurons literally etched in your brain, which are there for a long time. And you cannot expect just overnight change. Therefore, we pointed out, what are these 13 jaws of crocodile, call it, some visuals. What are these jaws of crocodile that can still, clamp you down while you are in this world doing your duty as a husband, as a father, as an employee, as an employer, as a son, as a daughter, as a mother, as a father, as a friend? What are these things? The first one was all or nothing thinking. Okay, what do you think all or nothing thinking is?
There's no compromise, so it's either exactly what you're after or you don't want anything to do with it.
Good. Yeah, so good. Okay. And this puts a lot of unfairness and pressure on the other person, because they feel now jaded or sort of cornered into one side, and they said, well, so what if I don't go your way, then there's no way out of it. And so it becomes a very unfair thing from their standpoint. What else could all or nothing thinking mean? Because this is the essence of what really creates a lot of frustration for others, for yourself, a lot of black or white thinking, a lot of either success or I'm a failure, or knowledge is supposed to take place within this period. If it doesn't, I'm doomed. Like how else can this manifest in one's life if you look at this all or nothing thinking? It's like this or it's like that, and all of the shades in between, they're taken out. How can this manifest in one's life? What kind of problems could this create?
Lots of judgments on yourself and on others.
Right, a lot of judgment on yourself and on others. Okay.
Feeling entitled.
Feeling entitled.
Too much focus with oneself.
So much focus on oneself. And therefore there is I neglect my environment. I neglect all of those wonderful other options that are available to both you and the other, and all of those doors. So it's like looking at door A and door Z, and all of these B, C, D, E, F, G, all of them, they get closed, they remain closed. So in that sense, if you analyze that experience, you're actually doing yourself a disfavor by not asking the question, what else, what other options are there? Could I have been being unfair in this moment? What other doors of opportunities are calling for my attention that I am so neglectful of them, owing to my likes and dislikes for one door or the other door?
Maybe expectation pressures, certain expectations, and that eventually puts pressure, and it can affect them mentally.
Indeed. So thereby, by putting this pressure according to one's own, right, little rule set, a little box, what's supposed to happen, then again, it corners the other individual and it creates a very rigid and non-cooperative discussion between two parties. So it creates resentment, especially if one has power over the other. And this can all add up slowly, and it can just, come back onto you and then you later on realize, 1 year later, when you're a little bit smarter and you go, wow, I was so certain about that option and I was so confident. And now that I know 1 year later worth of education, it's almost embarrassing to come to that point. So this means whenever we create this scenario, whether in our own heads or towards putting other people, they are like this. They're not like, they're like this. They're either like this or they're like that. You have to be very sensitive to recognize there is a future you who will be much smarter. And that smarter you will most likely look at this you and see the limitations. Therefore, we have to honor that future you who will most likely see the shades of gray that this you doesn't see right now.
Trying to be like someone else due to lack of contentment?
Yeah, so trying to be like someone else. And this is also part of, we also used another one last week, which was unfair comparison. So unfair comparison is whereby you find a measuring stick of someone that is so above you, right? Now, even that above you, it's very relative, right? Above according to what you value. For someone else, it's not above at all. So if you value a musician, then they're sort of worthy of being compared to. But in real life, have you ever come to the situation where you were comparing yourself because they had something or they had some position and you got it and you realize there's not much in that position for you? It was like, what's the big deal? Right? I thought it was such a great thing to have, but now that I have it, I don't really want that. And yet all of that time, you see, was spent on, right, elevating myself to some other status. And also, whenever we compare ourselves, I also want to add is that you have to ask yourself, this person to whom I'm comparing myself to, they also have their fair share of flaws, okay? Because when we start to compare to someone better, we tend to ignore, again, we go back into black or white thinking. They are perfect, therefore they are perfect. But that's just not the case with anyone. So this means if you want to compare, this is wonderful because we get inspired, right? We get inspired by those who are like Mahatma Gandhi, right? Now, specifically, instantly someone's going to say, well, he was not, he caused kind of more damage to India than not. See, instantly all or nothing thinking. So this means one has to now get specific. Yes, every person in this world has something to inspire you with, no doubt. But I keep my vision there without letting it sort of coloring the entire person and now become this idealized figure that is worthy of attainment. The fact is, everyone has limited knowledge and limited power. But at the same time, they have something to inspire us through. So this is wonderful. We keep things in perspective. I love this about you. I admire this about you, but it doesn't mean that it now lowers me. Because you also have a lot of skills and a lot of strengths that the other doesn't have. This is a fact. Therefore, we do not forget this.
Andre, on the other side of things where you have somebody who has that all or nothing thinking, but you might be a situation where you respect that person, or you need to, like, you might be an employee or something, and as a person who for the most part is fairly generous and will accommodate, but eventually it just, if it keeps going, it's going to wear you down.
Yeah.
How do you deal with people like that if you can't really get out of it, if you're in a situation where that's the way they think, and you'll always find yourself compromising to suit them,
right?
But it goes the other way.
Okay. Well, you do have a choice, don't you? You can still, you may be compromising yourself, but at the same time, you can also honor yourself simultaneously for having something that is, look at your own life. You have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, and, you're a good person. You're studying the Vedanta. So there's so many good things about this that we forget when we start to compare ourselves to, an employer or someone that's in a higher position. So, but the truth is, they're good in their field, but you're also very good in your field. Okay. And we also sometimes get tricked by what's called situational confidence. This is whereby someone's exuding a lot of confidence in one area. Like what, at work, right? Naturally. But the moment they come out of that door, you wouldn't compare yourself to them anymore because they will not show that situational confidence at all. So again, we trick ourselves by putting someone on a pedestal. But if you look at their entire life, it is as good, it is as normal as your life is. Yeah.
Much about comparing with other people, but those other, like when you're dealing with somebody that has that all or nothing thinking, like everything has to go like that or not at all.
Right.
And you're in a situation where it's very difficult to remove yourself, but that person is like that all the time.
Yeah. So, okay. So what we're talking about, okay, but you still have a choice. Absolutely. That is right, because it's physically they're in that position. They may also believe that you're sort of lower or higher, whatever, right? They may kind of put you into that box. But at the same time, you still have a choice how to hold yourself, how to hold your own. You can still set boundaries. Okay. So those boundaries and that choice is still yours.
Yeah. I'm just saying it can be very challenging when it's difficult to
be.
yourself from those situations.
Well, I was just going to say, is that all or nothing thinking is that I think it can kind of create a lot of stress, first of all. And then when you're stressed out, you can't get yourself motivated to do anything. You just get into kind of a funk. And then also, then when you deal with people, you can't think of different ways to to go this way or that way, to talk to people in different ways. You can only think in one way.
Right.
And so you end up
Right. Good. So good. I think what you're also saying is that it gives me a thought is that it can limit one's conversation. So in a social setting, if one's sort of one-sided, right? And it's always it must be like this. So if I don't give some headway to the conversation, then it can become very awkward to stay around. There's no flexibility. So this
right, yeah.
Or even engaging
flexibility.
Before getting to a social situation, one can say, hey, let me choose to be flexible. Let me choose to acknowledge that there is so much color, so many perspectives, and I can flow with that. I don't have to be rigid about my opinion. Okay, so would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? It's such a powerful question. And so even if you're right, it doesn't necessarily sort of build this, friendship. So suppose someone, deepens the friendship, someone comes up to you and there is this very intellectual speaking, and you're feeling like it's just going over your head. But what are you secretly thinking about while they're saying that? You're thinking, I want to connect to you, right? You can speak all these words in your classes, but I want to connect to you no matter who you are. I just want to connect with you because I have a human heart and you have a human heart. And when you connect with them and they connect with you, ironically, that is what produces so much more transformation between two individuals than just exchange of data, exchange of information. And the only way that exchange of information can happen is if you open yourself up and recognize you come with limitations, they have limitations. Through that, I can be curious. I can become curious to try to investigate where could you be coming from. Let's open up a discussion about this. Let's have some transformation by the time we've finished speaking about. In fact, this is one of the communication rules in the Vedic model, which is hitam vadam. Hitam vadam is where vadam means speaking, and hitam, if you just memory, H for like hitting the mark. So this means that while we're both speaking, then is there a benefit that is going on for both of us? Or is it just sort of just chit chat, right? Chit chat is also fine. But if it's just all chit chat constantly, then you find yourself dissatisfied with the depth of the conversation. So one has to bring in this right, at the background, what is the benefit? Are we benefiting? Are we both growing? Are we both maturing? Are we both exercising our, our potential in this discussion? Therefore, would I rather be right? That means all or nothing thinking, or would I just be happy to give some leeway to the discussion?
I had a point that on one hand, we have all or nothing thinking. On the other hand, there are people who are great achievers. They are focused onto their objective. They accept no difference of opinion. They accept no odds, but they persist with their aim and they achieve something either for themselves or for the society or for the humanity. So how do you differentiate between these two opposing points of view?
Sure. So they sound opposing, but I think what you're saying is that the one who achieves and knows what they want, they are clear on what they want. They have well ascertained goals. They know what is not for them and they know what is for them according to what they're seeking. So that is a matter of already having self-reflected into your life. And through that self-reflection, self-introspection, thinking about what do you want, what is no longer for you, what have you grown out of? Okay, so that makes you much more you're focused on where is your time going, where is your effort and your general where are you investing yourself? But while investing yourself with those other people who are on your line of thinking, still all or nothing still applies there. So even there, I have to have some flexibility. So on one hand, I've discerned toys are not for me anymore. Girls are not for me anymore. Boys are not for me anymore. Endless relationships not for me anymore. What is for me? Moksha. But in moksha, you still come across people, don't you? You still come across friends. You still come across certain teachings. You still have kids. You still have, family. So now you look at your life and you say, where else? Even though I know what I want, I'm an achiever. Where else am I exercising this rigidity in my opinions, in my thinking, in my perspectives? Therefore, it is a universal phenomena. Discounting positives. Discounting positives is where you never give someone feedback for their good works, or people don't give you feedback, or you don't give others feedback. So we only give them sort of criticism, do better like this. And now, do you not appreciate positive feedback, even if you're brilliant at something? Who doesn't appreciate positive feedback? So imagine that you're doing so much work and nobody ever tells you one word or appreciates you for all your hard work. You probably start to crave it or probably start to look for it. It just takes one word of gratitude, appreciation. It takes enough to get you back on track, to get you from a low to a high. Just one word of appreciation. Therefore, even if you're brilliant at something or someone's brilliant at something else, forget not that feedback goes a long way. And it also builds friends.
It's so cultural, actually.
Is it? How so?
Yeah, I think from where I come from, back in India, there is more criticism, less praise. Maybe things are changing now, but at least that's how we grew up with.
And so you can see even how within the culture it can percolate and contribute to the society. But it goes a long, long way. And this is not some belief. We all know, we all crave for that feedback, that recognition, no matter how brilliant you are. This is a fact.
It made me, here, that's the more right there. It's a more common thing, and I have seen the difference
You
in
feel
that.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely, it makes a whole big difference.
Yeah, it does. It does. It encourages you. It makes you go, yes, I'm not just a small I mean, factually, you are small, you're little, you're a dust in this cosmic universe. But end of the day, it doesn't matter. You still have your part to play. So Taiwan is a culture that rarely gives positive feedback, but it may be changing. So yeah, so we're, cultures are there, but we're talking about mostly within ourselves. You still have, right, your own circle of influence. So that's where this counts. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. And then mind reading. Mind reading is where, right, you assume that you know what other people are thinking. Again, this is, maybe with kids, my mom always kind of knew what I was thinking. I used to lose keys as a child, house keys, and I didn't say anything. And she just says, "You lost keys, didn't you?" How is this possible? Every single time she knew, "You lost your house keys, didn't you?" And I had to admit. So now, right? So yes, mind reading has its part. We have this certain, body language, things come across. But at the same time, to take so much confidence in this, it can also become a problem. You become a little bit of a, she or he, my husband or my wife is cheating. I can mind read them. I can tell these signs, but it may not be entirely true. Maybe they're just, going through it. You just don't know. So this means there's some space to question or to ask or to open up a conversation rather than making these assumptions. Do I know what you're thinking now? You're thinking when I'm going to move on to the next statement. And the next statement is should statements. Now, should statements are, see here, they're imposed rules, like self-imposed rules or cultural rules, such as you should always be on time. There is a certain truth to that. I mean, obviously, if you're an employer, you want your employee to be on time. Or I should always get it right. I should always, speak well. I should always be alert. I should always, this always or never. Or you never talk to me in a way that I feel loved. You never speak, in a way that, honors my existence in this house. Or you never, right? So it's all, and you should instead be like this towards me. So again, to kind of put this much pressure on the other person, it makes them feel incompetent. So when we speak, sure, you can communicate your rules, your certain expectations, but you have to also communicate it in a strategic way so it doesn't put too much pressure on the other person.
There is the expectation that when there is a Slack message, you should respond in the next 5 minutes. That expectation.
That's a good one.
It can happen. Sometimes you can't.
Yeah, good. However, the thing is also sometimes we can train the other person. If you keep on responding, and if you suddenly don't respond within 5 minutes, then that can come off as a little bit strange. So you have to also think about, what am I training this person to expect from me? So we have to look at our own things, because if I keep on responding just because I'm excited, how long is that excitement going to last? Probably not more than a month or two. Now, when the excitement is gone, you're no longer willing to respond within 5 minutes. So now they're going to feel that, and it brings the certain, you should respond to me like this, right? So this means we need to think about the future repercussions. Fortune telling is predicting the future and expecting usually something unpleasant to happen. Like this is happening so many times in conspiracy theories, doomsday, Y2K, in the country, something's, war, World War III. It's always just this tragic, some terrible thing that's going to happen based on a very few variables that we find. So we take one variable as a tool from the environment, and then we make this whole story about it, and then fortune tell based on that. Or even astrology, right? I mean, astrology, I know it's big in India, but at the same time, I've heard so many people, right? They've been told all these, things, crazy things, the wonderful things. None of them came true. So, so you can't kind of look at these as absolute. They're indicators because they do look at your prarabdha karma, but there is no absolutes to this because the causes are always changing. Your life today, suppose I'm a fortune teller, and I say you will be very successful in some business venture. The moment you walk out, you're already changing your destiny because you're making different decisions. So there is some truth to me saying you will be successful, you will have a child, you will have whatever, right? But still, the person is making different decisions every single day. So they're either negating that future or they're coming closer to that future. So in that sense, you can't predict the future. If you ask the Lord Krishna comes down, Avatara, and you say, Lord, what's going to happen in 100 years from now? Go on, fortune tell for me. What's Ishvara going to say? I don't know. Even all-knowing Ishvara doesn't know. Why? Because Ishvara will say it depends on what the collective does with today and tomorrow and after tomorrow. And all of those additions of today, tomorrow, after tomorrow, that's going to determine 100 years from now. I just supply the resources, the atoms, the thoughts, the memories, the emotions. With your free will, you just mix it all up according to your thinking. And that's the kind of person that you end up being tomorrow. And that's the kind of actions you put into the field. And that's the kind of results that go inside to the field. And that's what all of us contribute into this field based on our present choices.
This seems like more of your strength. This is your weakness. If a right person would say that,
Right.
and not just say it in black and white.
To me, that sounds like a much wiser option, just to point out certain strengths and weaknesses. And we call this profile, personality profiles. And then to advise, perhaps, here's what you can do with these strengths. Here's what, potential things that you could, enjoy doing. It reminds me, actually, one time I went to Hawaii, of the shaman who told me, he said, he did exactly what you said, Arsha. He said, Andre, you have a strength for speaking and for knowledge. So you should lead people, and you should do like retreats. This was like 18 years ago. I totally didn't believe that. But that's how he interpreted it. Instead of saying you're going to be this person, right? It's just, you're probably going to doubt it anyway. So labeling is when we assign negative traits onto ourselves or to others, where we, again, look at something about the person and then make some conclusion and put a full stop. So I call this full stop. You're like this, and then a full stop. You're always late, you're not competent, full stop. You're very competent, full stop. Even to say that someone's competent, you're doing yourself a disfavor, because the moment they show a trait that you may not agree with, then we call this negative projection now. Negative transfer. So before it was all this idealizing. Oh, they're so wonderful. I'm labeling them as a wonderful person. They're so smart. They're so intelligent, so discerning. And we call this idealizing, right? So they're up there on a pedestal in our heads. Now they show one trait, and they will, guaranteed, that you don't agree with, that your opinion is different, because no one's free from these 13 patterns of thinkings. And what happens? Instant shift. Now you go, they're, and then another label, full stop. So this means even idealizing someone has a drawback. They are one coin flip away from getting the other treatment, labeling. And also when we label, we stop our thinking process, because that's it. I've labeled them. What is there to investigate further? So it's a survival mechanism. You can look at it. It's a quick way to, make a conclusion and then just move on with your life, because the mind likes completion. If it's living in incompletion, it's dissatisfied. Isn't this your experience? Suppose Carrie's parrot is, she's got a parrot on her shoulder, is hungry, and Carrie doesn't feed the parrot. Now, the parrot's mind is going to remain in an incomplete mode because it wants to fill itself up. So you have to fill, right, this parrot up with some seeds, whatever the parrot eats, and then the parrot will come back onto your shoulder like this. So we're like this too. If we don't give a label to something, we remain agitated. And this is what makes us just constantly want to give labels to politicians, to past people, to employees, to workers, but it doesn't do you a favor, because it retains your individuality. They are like this. What does this imply? They and I'm over here. Now there's two people. And yet Vedantic vision is all that is here is Ishvara. One appearing as many. The moment I put a label onto you, I've instantly in that moment separated you from me, from everything else, from Ishvara. Therefore, labeling is another pattern that we can, be mindful of and catch yourself. Catastrophizing. Catastrophizing, I said, is thinking of the worst case scenario. Someone is late, suppose, and then what does the mind start to go? Car crash, meteorite is falling onto them. They crossed the road and car went over them. Someone shot them. Catastrophizing. Worst case scenario, we stop ourselves. Now, I'm catastrophizing, stop, because it is your thing. It's not a universal, it's not a fact. It is a mind condition. Stop. Negative filtering is only looking at the negatives. So again, this is where you look at a situation and you only pick the negative traits of yourself or someone around you, or your employer, or a politician, or your child, or your parents, or this is, again, right? It's black or white thinking. The fact is we are a flexible individual. We have so many lovely traits about ourselves, so many strengths. So it's not fair to box someone up and pick out only the negative traits, because it slowly builds a certain image in your head about the other or yourself. And as long as I have this image about myself as this incompetent, who's not able to get it, who's, you know, not patient, who keeps swearing, who keeps doing this or that, then it becomes very hard to prosper, because there's always this half of the program saying, I'm not good enough, I'm insecure, and yet the other half is going, I am the whole. There's a confusion there. They're fighting each other. Insecure individual on one hand, and I am the whole being in whom this entire universe is, including time and space, is on the other side of the brain. They cannot work together. So my question is, with whom are you potentially drawing out or enjoying to draw out the negatives? With yourself? With someone else? Who is that? And what kind of things do you usually draw out when it's about the negative drawing out? What kind of things are they? They're not good enough. They don't care. They never look at me. They never pay attention. They never listen. What is that? Do you know? Because there's a pattern. It's usually one or two things that is across the board of everyone, no matter who you put in front of the person. It's always going to be one or two things. What are they? When I draw out the negative, what am I drawing out? Now, what we say in the Vedanta, we say this pratipaksha bhavana. What is the opposite? What thumbs up can I find about them? I found two thumbs down. What are the two thumbs up that I can find? It's much harder, isn't it, to find thumbs up? Did I tell you this experiment in an art studio where one group was asked to give a critique of the picture, to tell all the things that are wrong with the picture, where you could make a mistake, where the mistakes are, and almost everyone had something to say. This is wrong, thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. It's like the brain is brilliant at finding thumbs down. And then the second group was invited, and they were asked the question, where can you give a thumbs up to this? Where can you, what can you appreciate, or what unique thing can you point out? Not just a great picture, not that, but just something unique. And I think only like 5% had suggestions what to improve. See, this is how our brain is trained. Maybe this is also evolutionary, I don't know, to look at the mistakes and to look at things that are not working. I don't know, but it shows you that that this can be another stifling pattern. Because again, if all that is here is one, which is a fact, how is that going to rub against if I keep on drawing the negatives out and living in those bubbles of negatives? Self-blame or blaming others. So self-blame, what is this? This is where you're taking excessive responsibility for things that are out of your control. And blaming others is where one's refusing to own up that I do have control in my thoughts, in my thinking, in my emotional management, but then I just offload it onto someone else. This can also happen at the national level, can't it? Where, you know, that country is the reason for our failure. It's their fault. That's why we're all now in this position. or it's because I grew up with these privileges or lack of privileges. That's why I'm now so old coming to Vedanta. So who am I offloading responsibility onto? Where am I finding an escape route? Where? And putting it onto whom? Who is my wall that I'm wallpapering over? Therefore, we look at our lives and we say, every area of my life is under my control. That is a fact. There is a level of choice that you have. But is there some area that I'm secretly offloading, maybe to my past, maybe to my school buddies, that I'm here now? Let it go. In fact, it was a lovely lesson. They taught you well, and they've gotten you to this place now. They've gotten you to Vedanta. How many come to Vedanta? The smallest of the smallest of the smallest number in the world. The absolute smallest. My first teacher said, when you come to Vedanta, Advaita, that is the last journey in your spiritual search. There's nothing higher. And I can testify to this also. There's nothing higher. That's it. There's nothing higher. So now, to come to the highest, that says a lot. How much punyam do you need for that? Now, if you don't think it's the highest, that's not my fault. That's still your mind needs more discernment. But if you've got a sharp mind, if you've been through the spiritual search, if you've been through Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, this and that, and Christianity and Islam, if you've been through all of that, and you've got a discerning mind, and you have a self-inquirous mind, a self-reflective mind, you will come to agree to the statement without a shadow of a doubt. And I can say this so confidently, without any doubt whatsoever. So now, in that mode, to blame, there's no chance. There's no space for blaming others. You are here now. Appreciate that. Okay? Overgeneralizing and emotional reasoning. Overgeneralizing, again, is making these very shallow conclusions about what's happened in the past and then projecting that onto the present. For example, you haven't listened yesterday, therefore you never listen. That's just yesterday. Doesn't mean never. Okay? And emotional reasoning is where we say, I've got a gut feeling about this, but there's no real evidence. You got a gut feeling about someone. I've got a gut feeling that bad vibes. I'm getting bad vibes about this person. Really? So you know everything about them now to get bad vibes about them. Therefore, the language changes. I am uncomfortable with you right now, with something, but it doesn't mean that the entire person is a bad vibe person. Therefore, it's so tempting to have a gut feeling and then use that as empirical evidence that you are right. It's not right. Most likely, it's not the full picture. So this means we need to start to investigate before we have this gut feeling. Why did I just mention these 13 patterns? Can someone tell me? Is this academic study or what is this? What is this for? What's the purpose of this?
Well, I think it's more helping us with self-reflection.
It's cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Basically, we're talking about here. It's like self-inquiry in a way, but a bit more like from psychological perspective.
Good. And is anyone an exception from these 13? Are you somehow like excluded from these 13? Like it doesn't apply to you?
No, I think it applies to everyone. Like, just like when we like all 13 applies, then I would call it a disorder.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everyone has a bit of that.
And did these 13 patterns apply to those in the past? Would they apply to those in the future?
Yes.
Is any country excluded from these 13? Any
No.
culture?
Universal.
Universal. We're talking universal knowledge. We're not wasting time on cultural things here. It's universal. The whole Gita is universal knowledge. Okay? Therefore, next time when we talk about negative thinking, like what is negative thinking? The answer is these 13.
All of these things are like irrational thinking. And if you're not being rational, you're not going to get better at meditating or thinking.
Yeah.
You're not gonna rise to a higher level.
You can't, because it's just going to pull you back. One's going to get stuck with all or nothing thinking. There's going to get stuck with fortune telling, going to get stuck with catastrophizing, going to get stuck with any one of these. And it just keeps one very, very busy. That's the thing. And we cannot afford, life is too short to be busy with any one of these all our lives, which is too short.
Can't progress.
Yeah.
No
Andre,
progression.
Therefore, just mentioning it is enough.
Andre, in the past, you've mentioned several times, I think, that a big part of what we're trying to learn here is the difference between Ishvara Sushti and Jiva Sushti. And that Jiva Sushti is kind of going to just lead you on the same kind of mistakes over and over again. And
Yeah.
it's only until you kind of work that through and you start to see the world as it is and reality as it is, and stop putting your own things on it. And these 13 are really about that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Identify those patterns.
Yeah, so what Michael is saying is that we all start out in this world more or less in a bubble, a big bubble. And this bubble is indoctrinated through culture, through parents, through society, and we carry this bubble wherever we go. So now when the teaching comes, where are teachings going? Inside the bubble or inside my brain? They're going inside the bubble, which is inside my brain. My bubble is inside my brain. So this means when I hear about all of these teachings like Ishvara and Brahman and awareness, all of it, it cannot penetrate my empirical self. It cannot penetrate my brain. It's going right inside the bubble. It's kind of filtering all these things, taking out the negative filters, selective thinking. I don't like this. I want more of that. So it's kind of just reshuffling the whole teaching according to its likes and dislikes. And this has to go. That gate that determines what is worthy of listening and what is not worthy of listening, that gate has to open up and let the teaching go in. This is why this is important. This is why you can have someone listening for 20 years, in Advaita even, and the knowledge is still not taking place. Why? In fact, I don't think they're listening to Advaita, it's more like partial or Neo-Vedanta. Why? Because trauma is not being addressed. The basic core person is not being addressed. Emotions are not being addressed. The mind is not being addressed. These are your gateways to the knowledge. So we need to have a fertile ground, a fertile soil of the mind where I can plant these seeds of self-knowledge and let them sprout. This is why the work is important.
Chitta Suddhi.
Chitta Shuddhi or Antahkarana Shuddhi. In other words, the whole process is about purifying the mind and letting this just flourish, because we're not producing Atma. We're not producing Atma. We're just revealing what's already pervading your mind right now. You are pervading your mind. That very you that's pervading your mind is pervading my mind right now. To a wise person, this is clear as daylight. To an unwise person, this is still a little bit wishy-washy. It's still confusing. So we need to remove these, these kind of dirty notions that keep on making this knowledge into something that it's not. Therefore, Antahkarana Shuddhi becomes crucial. Krishna continues the discussion and he says, if we just do our duty and we do what is to be done, that is not enough. What do you mean? I'm doing what is to be done. I'm being dharmic. That's not enough. That's not enough. You have to convert your duty into a spiritual practice if you want moksha. And this conversion from ordinary duty, ordinary down-to-earth work into a spiritual practice where it's got double benefits is called karma yoga. What is karma yoga? It is whereby I turn every challenge in my life into a learning platform. From now on, life becomes a learning platform where you can reorient yourself. Each time a hardship comes into your life, you say, brilliant. Now let me apply the teaching in the light of this challenge. In the light of this discussion or this conflict, let me bring in this teaching, the entire teaching, whatever comfortable teaching you have at that time, let me reinterpret the situation through the teaching. That is karma yoga. Why are you doing that? As Arsha said, because I want to reorient my deep-rooted notions. I want to see the world through this knowledge. So this conscious use of your mind to reinterpret every challenge, every interaction through the eyes of this knowledge is called karma yoga. Therefore, now, whatever happens is wonderful. It's no longer a hardship. It is an opportunity. Here confronts me a very challenging task. It is a manifestation of Ishvara. Now let me deal with it. Let me do what is to be done. Therefore, it reorients you to turn your ordinary mundane actions into a spiritual practice where you don't have to go and, to the temple and to meditation and all this. This is all wonderful, but ordinary actions becomes your means of purifying your mind. Ordinary life becomes the means by which I can bring Ishvara into my life. And that's where the joy is. Bringing God in all things. Before, just going to work, coming back, oh, work is so hard. I had these people and they're complaining. Oh, now I'm hungry. What is hunger? Manifestation of Ishvara. What is the food I eat? Manifestation of Ishvara. The nutrients that nourish my body, manifestations of Ishvara. Okay, let's see what this karma yoga is in verse 41 and what does it involve. Verse 41 will ask the question, what turns an ordinary person doing ordinary actions into a karma yogi? Yavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyananantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam.
With reference to this moksha, Arjuna, the descendant of Kurus, there is a single well-ascertained understanding. The notions of those who lack discrimination are many branched and innumerable indeed.
Krishna is saying here, what converts an ordinary person into a karma yogi? And he specifically says the word vyavasayatmika buddhi. Another name for this is nishchayatmika. It basically means a discerning intellect. So vyavasayatmika buddhi means a thinking, inquirous, self-reflective, thinking intellect. An intellect that asks the question, what is the final goal in my life? What is the final purpose amongst all of these things? Why am I here? Am I living that final purpose? And is what I'm doing getting me closer to that final purpose, or I'm just going around in circles? Is what I'm doing and what I want, is it related or is it unrelated? And how is it related? Therefore, the person with vyavasayatmika buddhi becomes one who is a karma yogi. That means they're starting to think, what is my purpose on earth? And am I living that purpose? And that purpose is always going to be moksha for a karma yogi. So what makes you a karma yogi? Is what I'm doing helping me in my, purifying the mind? Is what I'm doing bringing Ishvara into my life? Is what I'm doing helping me to relate to Ishvara?
What if that person doesn't think like that? Then?
That means you can still develop vyavasayatmika buddhi. So this means no one quite starts out with this.
Yeah. How can you increase that kind of a buddhi?
Well, I mean, it's not an overnight process. Like with anything, we start to get more curious about things. We start to ask questions and try to make connections between how is one thing connected to the other. So you're making connections. You're taking some time to think and reflect about what we're saying. In fact, the classes themselves are building vyavasayatmika buddhi. Yeah, because we're listening. And we're not just listening passively, I hope not. We are thinking about what is being said. Okay? So therefore, vyavasayatmika buddhi makes you a karma yogi. So what is a karma yogi? The one who is using their intellect to bring in the teaching, to connect the dots, to ask the question, am I living my highest purpose? Am I living for the sake of moksha or for the sake of dharma, artha, or kama? Which is fine, but ultimately, am I living the highest purpose? If the answer is yes, you're a karma yogi. So a karma yogi is very clear. I only want moksha in my life. Karma yogi is like the one with the banks of a river. If you have banks going to the river banks of a river, they're going towards the ocean. Can the water ever waver outside those banks? Considering there's no alternative path. No, because it's going to be driven right towards the ocean. So what is the one with Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi? You're like the banks of a river. And they're well defined. Where am I going? I'm going towards the ocean of Ishvara. That much is clear. Otherwise, without this, then Krishna says, without this guidance, he says, without this guidance are the ones with avyavasayinam buddhi. You just add the word a. Without discriminating minds. Without this, what happens? There is endless branching. He calls it bahu shakaha. What is endless branching? Endless branching of pursuits, endless branching of opinions, endless branching of religious comparisons, endless branching of spiritual studies. One's unable to sit down and get on with the program. Always hopping, skipping, comparing. How is Buddhism different from Advaita? How is Advaita the same as this? How is this compared to that? What is better? Is this better or that better? In constant research mode, unable to sit down and get on with anything. That's the one without a discerning intellect. And thereby they go into, I know Arsha, they go into an endless branching mode and it never stops. And we have all seen, hopefully, the spiritual field. You go inside the spiritual field, everyone's got something to tell you, don't they? Everyone's got something wise to share. And yet it's all just opinions, all just unvalidated, confirmed, opinions. Endless branching for how long? Lifetimes. And they're all valid. There's a website, you subscribe, you register, and they put you into this program. And then 1 year later, you realize I'm not following any of this. It hasn't changed my life. It's okay. Another program. Sign up to that. When is this going to stop? Until one starts to develop this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Because you can have two kinds of people. They go to the same spiritual room. One of them, they're just going, this doesn't sound right to me. But then one next to them, what else? Give me more, give me more. No discernment. This is the funniest thing ever, strangest thing ever. The same knowledge is being said. One of them is just naturally picking out, this has no logical sense. It's illogical. It's flawed. The one next to them is not able to pick that out. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is what makes you discern all of these endless paths that are presented to you. And you say, no, 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 no. Just like Pankaj said, I know what I want because of my discernment. No. No, 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 come more, come to this, no. And you're firm about it. Now, are you saying no because you're sort of shy or, you're disenchanted from the world or angry or just sort of, neutral towards it or apathy? Are you saying no because of that? No, you're not saying no because of that. You're saying no because of Vyavasayatmika Buddhi.
Does the avyavasayatmika also refer to endless cycle of birth? No?
No, it just means non-discriminating mind.
Okay.
A mind just accepts whatever comes, it just accepts it. It just goes for a ride, goes on a big tangent.
Yeah, Andre wanted to ask, in this pursuit of Gyanma, in this pursuit of knowledge, there's a motivation to know the final reality. That is like my motivation to know the final reality. Is moksha a process, or a moksha can be a final aim also? How can moksha be final aim? I mean,
okay, so you come through Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, you come through your own discretion, through your own discernment, that moksha, that anything I do through my body and mind, it's always going to give me a limited result. Anything I have in this world is going to give me a limited result. A limited person doing a limited action is always going to give me a limited result. Therefore, through your own discernment, through your own experience, you come to this journey. You can't sell moksha to someone, to your mom and dad or children. You know how many once say, you know, how do I tell this to my children? I want to get the Gita. I want to get my children into the Gita. It barely ever works because you can't sell the Gita. You can't sell Krishna's vision to someone. They have to see it for themselves. They have to come from their own heart and get innocently attracted to that knowledge.
So basically what I am understanding is that once you are on the path and well into it, then moksha could become the aim. Not when you're starting out. It could only be your intrigue. It could only be, let me find this out, and only later when you have found enough, sufficient enough, and then you feel, okay, I should also be here. Moksha.
It's it's so many things, Gautam. People show you, you get inspired by other biographies, you see Krishna's vision, something connects with you, and slowly you remove these notions that the ultimate aim of life is to go to heaven, and it becomes more and more clear to you that the ultimate aim is really just moksha. It takes time. It's not this, you can't kind of put a definitive process or so many, and this is just one lifetime. This has started since how long ago? Beginningless lifetimes. So for me to go like, what has contributed to your seeking for moksha, for your undesire, for your insatiable appetite to know who you are and to connect with this and to bring the vision of the Gita into your life, what has contributed to that? I don't know, but something has. And it doesn't matter if you're from India or from the West. We have tons of Westerners who, the moment they hear this, they are into it, crazy into it. An Indian can hear this their whole life and they go, oh, Gita, I've heard about it 1,000,000 times. So even that doesn't really qualify one for moksha, what culture they're from. So that's quite a mystery, isn't it? What gets you to this journey? What connects you to this journey? But we know it is Ishwara's grace and it is your own efforts.
He says in the Gita, that no spiritual effort goes in vain and it gets continued. So I guess it must be a continuation.
According to the Vedic vision, there is no effect. There is no present without the past. So if your present is an innocent, insatiable, crazy, unexplainable attraction for enlightenment, there is a reason for that. Okay, we can create a story about it, but that story may not be the full picture. But you can sort of make some inferences. You can say, hey, since I was a child, I started to inquire and I was asking about the world and my parents were so annoyed by all my questions. Where did all of these questions come? Why was I so curious and the kids were not so curious? Why was I so introverted looking about philosophical matters and other kids were talking about girls and cars? What made me so different to other people? I don't know. But you were like that, weren't you?
It seems to me, Andre, that moksha isn't something that, oh, there I am. Like, oh, now I found it. It isn't like that. To me, it feels like it's more like noticing changes in yourself or your thinking or how you are in different situations and things. Almost like you're going there, but it's not like every day I'm like, oh, am I getting closer to moksha? No. And it's almost like, oh, and when you have, it's not like, oh, I'm there, I got it. I don't feel like it's that kind of a thing. You're just there. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have this sort of one moment, 3:59 p.m. I don't know what's what, 4 o'clock, right? It's this instant shift, right? So it's not, because it's such a gradual, it grows on you, it slowly grows on you. But I want to explicitly state that moksha is, there is that moment where we call it akandakara vritti, where the knowledge becomes clear and you recognize it. You recognize it as clear as daylight. And from that moment on, there's no more doubt about who I am. There may be still doubts, there may be still yearning to clear things up in the mind. Okay, that's going to continue. But in terms of who you are, that is completely doubtless knowledge. Because how can you doubt something that you are if you are that? Okay, it's like me doubting, a phone. What is this? What is this? It's evident. It's a phone. So in that same way, when you know who you are, There is no doubt whatsoever. Until then, it's a growing clarity. It is refining responses, managing the mind, reflecting upon your responses, working on these negative patterns. Until then, it's a growing clarity.
Yeah, Andre, you mentioned about karma yogi being one who has that single-pointed focus towards liberation. But is it necessary a karma yogi should know about moksha? He could still be following the principles of karma yoga, meaning doing it as an offering to the divine.
Yes, but for the sake of reaching the divine, I'm offering things to the divine to relate to the divine. So they may not explicitly state so that I can get moksha. They're indirectly wanting the divine. They're relating to the divine. Okay, so karma yoga is a process where you're doing your thing, but you're recognizing it is all coming from one Ishvara. I'm never outside of the Ishvara's order. And what I'm seeking ultimately is not results from Ishvara, like small limited results. I'm seeking Ishvara itself. That's the difference. So what makes you a karma yogi is you no longer want endless gifts falling from the sky, right? Or whatever, right? In the future or now. You want Ishvara itself. I want the whole because I am the whole. I may not understand how I'm the whole, but I want the whole. That's what is karma.
But is that wanting of whole there in that person who is following? Or is it something that just happens because he is not having that doership anymore? So ultimately he gets into that, but not wanting it really. Or is it that he wants...
Sure. There is a doership in karma yoga. Karma yoga is still not enlightened. Karma yoga is a means to enlightenment. So there is I am doing, but all of that is to purify the mind enough to understand I am not the doer. So verse 41, we're talked about karma yoga being a means to an end. The end is moksha. And for the end, I need a clear mind. How so? There's a nice comparison in the Upanishads of 3 buckets. Now, 3 buckets, they're all reflecting the sun. The sun is what they all want to appreciate. They all want to appreciate the fullness of that sun. Naturally, depending on the quality of the water, okay, the water represents the mind and the bucket represents the body. Depending on the quality of that water of that bucket will depend on how much I'm capturing the fullness of the sun, okay? Therefore, I need a relatively clear bucket of water to clear up my stuff out for the sake of what, showing off to the world how pure I am? No, for capturing the final end. The end is the sun itself. So like this, karma yoga, I am clearing up my mind for the sake of moksha. Now, in verse 42 and 43, we'll do it together. The question will be, or the statement that Krishna says is that most use Bhagavad Gita to get better future experiences in heaven. So this means karma yoga will now be used to get heaven. And we will see why this happens. Why do most use the Gita for heaven and not moksha? Verse 42 and 43. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipashchitaha vedavadaratav partha nanyat astiti vadinaha kamat manaf swarga paraha janma karma pala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati.
Partha, Arjuna, the non-discriminating people who remain engrossed in karma enjoined by the Veda and its results, who argue that there is nothing other than this, who are full of desires with heaven as their highest goal, utter these flowery words that talk of many special rituals meant for the attainment of pleasures and power and of the results in the form of better births.
The Gita and the Veda says that all of us, we come to earth not knowing what is our purpose. Do you know your purpose when you're born automatically? Do you know why you're here? Where you're going? What happens after death? Why did you get these parents and not somebody else? Why you were born in this country and not some other country? How is life to be lived? What's the ultimate purpose of life? Not one person has an answer to this question. How did the universe come? What was before time and space? What's the point of all of this? Why is creation here in the first place? Not one person has this. So what do? We then ask mom and dad, and we look at the society, and we say, well, the purpose therefore must be to get a big house, make money, go to college, have kids, get married, be healthy, big muscles, beautiful face, pretty, high heels, dress, on and on and on. Therefore, life becomes like this. Now, because of this, not having the answer, we have two philosophies created that generally determine what is the ultimate end of life. Because we have philosophers, right, who look at the world and we try to make some inferences. What is the purpose of life? And we came with two conclusions. The first conclusion is what we call Purva Mimamsika. Purva Mimamsika, or you can say Karma Kandis. Those who are looking at this world and saying, you come here to do good actions, and you have to do good actions to gain lots of punyam, lots of merits on your account, so that you can go to a higher place in the future. In other words, Earth becomes a very short stop, like a bus station. We're in a bus station now, and we just come here to get good punyam. And then where you really go is you go to heaven, and you go there for millions of years, and you enjoy yourself. Then you come back here, and again, you have to do some good works, and then again, back to heaven. So Earth is just a place to do good works and to ultimately go to your real home, which is heaven. Now, this is one way of looking at it. And this way, according to, as we will see in this verse, in fact, it's going to say now, Krishna calls them avipashchits. Avipashchits means non-discriminating people. And this is kind of a, a big thing. Like, how can you call so many non-discriminating? Well, this is what Krishna is saying. That means one who is still revolving in this chakra of samsara, traveling from world to world to world to world. They are non-discriminating people. In fact, you and I are in this solar system, right? We got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. And we only have one planet that has sentient beings called Earth. Our solar system is one in our galaxy called the Milky Way. How many solar systems in the Milky Way? Hundreds of billions. How many galaxies, by the way? Hundreds of billions of galaxies. Think about this. And you and I are in just one single place. And what do? We want to travel from one solar system to another solar system, and then to another solar, and then just to take a little hop to another galaxy. Fall back down, do your work, just keep on going like this. It's like a bee. Krishna calls them avipashchits, non-discriminating people. And what do? They use flowery words. This is my favorite part. That's why it's my favorite verse. Pushpitam vacham, flowery words that sound really sweet, but they have no substance. What are flowery words? What do flowery words sound like? Let me improvise. Oh, we are all divine beings. We come from the sacred mother, and we are here to inculcate our purpose and live our fullest to our fullest potential. Let us all unite together in this wonderful grand scheme of cosmic consciousness, where we're all one, working our way through this flow of life divinity, like a river flowing down the stream, where we're all coming together and living out this fullest potential. And you're going, did you tell me anything concrete? Or you were just speaking sweetly? Flowery words. How many of us know this language? I do, a lot in the spiritual world. A lot of this goes on in the spiritual world. And you're listening to this, and it's not getting anywhere. It's just mixing words up. It all sounds sweet, but there's no concreteness there at all. Non-discriminating people. The other types are Uttara Mimamsaka. Uttara Mimamsaka. Now, Uttara Mimamsa is another word for Advaita Vedanta. These people are the smallest of the smallest of the smallest of the smallest of the smallest. Why? Because they have come to the point of recognizing the very thing that I just said about the fruitlessness of traveling from one galaxy to another solar system to another solar system. It just never ends. Ultimately, you get bored anyway. And the only way they've recognized is to stop this process altogether, come out of time and space. And the only way for that is through a certain methodology. And thereby, Krishna says, most who come to the Bhagavad Gita, how do they interpret the Bhagavad Gita? According to Uttaramimamsa, Advaita Vedanta, or Karmakanda, doing actions to travel between solar systems. I think you already know the answer to this, don't you? Therefore, most who listen to the Gita or to the Vedas or to any scripture, what would they do? I need to perform better actions to improve my life, to travel from place to place to place. And why is this method more popular? Does someone want to try this? Why is number one more popular?
Because without knowing the actual pursuit, one is looking for a reward in terms of heaven. Because his life has been only looking for reward.
Okay, good. So it's kind of a continuation of what you're used to. Okay.
Easy. It's very easy.
Easy, good. Every method, it basically makes your ego sort of more, bigger and easier and more, appealing and so on. But which school attacks the ego itself? Which school attacks the individual itself? You go to a philosophy class right now, and you will learn about what? Jainism, yoga, Buddhism, Mahayana. You'll learn about Advaita. You'll learn about so many different Plato, Aristotle, Western and Eastern. But who remains safe? I remain safe. The knower who has been ignorant since beginningless time remains safe. So there's all of this knowledge is coming to me, and it's not attacking me. What is it attacking? It's attacking, what is it working on? It's working on over there, there. What about this person? To come to the stage where you're willing to attack the very person. Who is this person? Who is this I? That takes so much courage and so much maturity on the individual's part. And not many are willing to do that. Therefore, it's not so popular.
Yeah, also, I think those are the kind of promises made in all other religions, right? So that's what probably makes it kind of the universally accepted, kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's
could be the reason everyone kind of easily moves towards that direction, because the crowd is moving there.
The crowd is moving there, and therefore I'll move along with the crowd. That means, and who moves along with the crowd? One who is avyavasayanam buddhi, one who is non-discriminating. In fact, there's a nice phrase that says, ignorance is sexy. Ignorance is very popular. Whatever is popular in this world is most likely run by a lot of distortions underneath it. But truth is just in the corner. And the more truth you come, the closer you come to the truth, the less and less and less and less popular it becomes. You go to the beginner stages of spirituality, which is what? Yoga asanas, right? And chanting and just, respectable things. I'm not putting down, but just generally, a lot of people there. You can make so many friends at beginner stages of spirituality. As you go up, what happens? Where are all my friends gone? Very lonely place almost, right? This is the journey. So therefore, one's climbing up, because you've got vyavasayatmika buddhi. And as you go higher and higher, not many are willing to follow you, because you need a certain lifestyle, a certain thinking, a certain thought process to that.
How does me gaining moksha benefit the rest of the universe, or rest of the people, for example?
Right. It doesn't, how does you gain it? It benefits you because see, you already the whole thing right now. So there's no now question of other people. It's really a journey. You came here for your own recognition of your own nature. So it benefits you. But it also benefits others in the sense of you become a non-demanding person. you become more inspiring, others become more likable, others want to, maybe you want to share this knowledge. So a lot of people indirectly benefit. So I'm not just speaking to you, for example, or you're not speaking just to someone else if you're teaching them, because they also have so many connections, and you're indirectly connecting and influencing them and whoever they're connected to. So if you look at this time span, you influenced one person, but because they know 5 others, in 1,000 years, how many people did you actually influence? Tons, hundreds of people. We don't see with our small minds, but in actuality, you're influencing so many around you.
I was kind of thinking about, sometimes I noticed that, I'll be following, like your teaching or another teaching, and then when I get away from it, it kind of slips out of my mind, and I get back into the world and it gets hard to follow. And so, I think, well, my mind isn't pure. And so I find myself going back and like rereading like the first chapter of like Tattva that we studied a couple of years ago. And, I'm trying to do all those different things. I always think of, there's one word, titiksha. That was always my favorite. And, I mean, is that what you mean about like not progressing, and, is going to those kind of rules like that?
I mean, it's a good thing you're mentioning, Carrie. It's a universal phenomenon, which you're saying is that you come to a class and the strength, the pressure of past causes pulls you back. See, no effort is overnight, is it? A tennis champion, they don't, suppose they've been doing tennis for 1 year playing. Can they say 1 year, they say, oh, I want to become a tennis champion? Can they say that? 1 year of tennis playing, they say, I want to become a tennis champion. Any tennis champion has studied for years, has gone through this for such a long time. So we cannot expect ourselves to get overnight results. We have to be patient with ourselves. And also we have to look at, where am I progressing? So give yourself some pat on the back. Okay? Because often it's what? Negative filtering. Oh, I'm not progressing in this. I'm going back here. Where are you progressing? That's the question. Where have you progressed so far since we began this course in the Gita? That's your homework. Find out 2 things, please, where you have made significant changes in your life, in perception, in communication, in anything since beginning this course. So verse 42 and 43, therefore, there are 2 paths that have been established, Karma Kanda, doing actions, and Uttaramimamsa, which is Advaita Vedanta. The second one is a lot less popular because you need that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi to come to that maturity. And thereby, the next verse will then talk about, Krishna will say, without this viveka, without this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, the seeker is like a child in a toy shop, endlessly pursuing things, wants it all. And then the next verse will talk about more about what does karma yoga actually involve. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi.